We're here this week, building up to World Values Day on the 15th of October. And I just wanted to get you on the line, Samie, as somebody I've worked with for a number of years, who's just been this leading force and light around values, working with people on an individual basis, organisations, to really tune into what their values are and how they can use them as a point of transformation. So yeah, I just want to start by asking you, what are values?
Well, values are principles that help us decide what's important in our life and therefore how we act or how we show up. It's like an investment, an emotional investment for or against something. And as you know, Helen, there are endless expressions of values, from love, ethical, family, teamwork, collaboration, accountability, optimism. I could go on.
Oh, and please do, amazing words, but what are your personal values and how did you find them?
I guess my values are like a pyramid, but sitting at the top would be my core values, and they're freedom, professionalism, and fairness. It's been really a life's work, but particularly fairness. It's quite a nuanced value. I used to think it was either integrity or respect. But when I started to put attention around what it was and therefore what it wasn't, I realized that fairness was one of my three core values. And freedom has really informed everything in my life as well. I remember from being a young boy to graduating from university, saying to my parents, you know, I want to pursue a career in aviation, but although I want to be at the front of a plane, earning particularly what pilots earn, I couldn't be cooped up in a cockpit. So I said I was going, much to their dismay, going to be cabin crew and freedom travel the world. But I love the way that hospitality, leisure, and the aviation sectors particularly, they lend themselves to people being able to express their values and therefore their humanity. I remember at the airline I was working with, we started flying to Japan. So the crew had to go through special training to operate those sectors. Three core values in Japan are attention to detail, quality, and harmony. And how they played out in behavioral or observational forms was, for example, attention to detail. We would even perform toilet origami in economy class. Or harmony, we would preempt customer issues so that there was silence, people weren't pressing the attendant call bell, or for example, trying to avoid the number 4, which is unlucky in Japanese society. So you get a sense there of how you're encouraged to show up with your values in order to be more relevant for the customers and the communities that you serve.
How wonderful. And as somebody who's worked with you for the past few years, I mean, I remember you calling me last year and saying that you'd given Marmalade Fish's profits away to the koalas on the verge of extinction and what was going on in Australia. So, you know, when you talk about fairness as somebody who, you know, it's been through that experience with you and you made that bold move, you can see how that really comes to life with how you show up and also how you run your business.
Yeah, it was just, I couldn't find myself living in a world where fluffy koala bears were going extinct.
And what an amazing thing to do, but obviously just don't try and give away your profits every single year.
Duly noted.
So moving on, because, you know, when we think about values, it's often, we can sort of think about the triggers that we get as individuals, which help us define and really know what our values are. But thinking about that with your triggers or when values have been breached, can you talk to any of that about what happens then, or maybe an example?
Yeah, what we find in organizations is that when they grow rapidly, the rapid growth, it's like the pendulum swings in a certain direction and it creates blind spots, which often comes at the expense of values or the responsibilities that business have outside of growing or making a profit, shareholder primacy. An example that happened to me this week is Zoom. So thank you, Helen, for setting up this particular conversation because I'm not able to. My account's been hacked, unfortunately. I want to say thank you to Zoom for enabling this conversation and so many of our conversations in 2020. And it deserves to have done well. I think their share price has quadrupled this year. And the challenge that I found this week was I wasn't able to get into my account because it was hacked in order to raise a support ticket. So I was trying to think, how do I do this? So I go into the billing and I reply to one of the emails I received with an invoice. A ticket was raised, but somebody, or maybe a robot, closed the ticket before I got help. So I ended up calling the UK number. I was trying to press 2, but nothing was happening. So I ended up calling America. And then it required a 6-digit number, which could only be accessed if I got into my account. So needless to say, I'm still without a Zoom account. But I share that with you because I noticed that Zoom's values are very high level on their website. They say, we care for our company, customers, community, teammates, and ourselves. And I'm left with a sense of, so what would I expect as a customer? What does that care look like? As I've not necessarily experienced it in this interaction. And the definition of their culture is just 2 words on the website: delivering happiness.
How interesting. And it brings me on really to talk about a little bit about your book, #Time for Humanity, because it's something that you cover. There's a whole section on the value of values. I've actually got it here. Your book is so beautiful, beautiful read. You know, in there you talk about that individuals change, organizations don't change. And just in light of, you know, that experience that you've had or wider, can you talk a bit more about that, and what's the opportunity, I guess, for us all as individuals this week, or companies, as we go towards World Values Day?
Yeah, well, I think the amount of status or importance that we give to things in society is determined by their height in a society. So, for example, in the old days, the cathedrals were the tallest buildings. Around the 17th century, it would have become political palaces. And of course, nowadays, it's head office, the glass towers, as I call them. And I think in 2020, we've been forced to revisit whether some of those constructs still serve us. What I mean in the book when I say organizations don't transform, people do, is really a company is a construct that all of us believe in. It's a document which is signed by some really important people, but they say the business of business is people. So it's for us then to think about, how do we show up in our work lives, often as we do in our home, with that love and care that we have for our home and our family, our pets, our friends, perhaps it's our community, our street, so that we aren't really 2 different people. We're just showing up more consistently with our values. And I think to myself, what would the world look like if we just chose one value and we pursued it with intensity? It could be kindness, or maybe it's non-critical acceptance. It might be forgiveness or generosity. You know, what's the value that really speaks to you? It's the most important thing in your life. And World Values Day maybe gives us the awareness of what that is, and then how do we bring it more consistently? Because when we do so, it forces us to invoke those feeling parts of being human. It reminds us what it is to be a person of moral fiber, and that's how we're going to influence positive change in society. You know, we have these Time for Humanity bracelets. We give these out to people who we know, and we invite them to hand them out to anybody who in the streets, business, community expresses their humanity. It says, I'm giving you this gift as a token of gratitude for bringing your humanity. The world needs it more than ever. Keep shining. And what I love about handing these out to people is it forces us to also seek it. It gets us into the mindset of looking for the best nature of people. And then when we seek stuff, I found that it's more likely that we will find it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that because of the work I do with the brain. And, you know, when we set that intention, then we start to open up our whole worlds. Otherwise, we're just discarding and generalizing all of this information that's there, and giving praise and recognition to other people and showing that humanity and that action. How wonderful. So I just want to say thank you to you for you sharing your insights, and happy World Values Day.
Thank you, Helen. Happy World Values Day.